Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. So I want to, if you guys have any questions, just so you know, I'm chewing gum, so don't put that down on any question. So I'm going to knock on the door, and Carolyn's going to come and open the door, and I'm going to say, I'm here to list your home, right? And then I'm going to come in, and I'm going to put my stuff down at the kitchen table, because nobody makes decisions on the couch. Right, so on the kitchen table. Then I'm going to walk around the house and I'm going to take some notes with the client. Some people prefer to do it without the client. I like to do it with them because I want them to tell me all the things. Right, and they're going to find out, and some of these might be value adds and some of them might just be, not really add any value at all. So then we're going to go to the kitchen table. So Carolyn, thank you so much for having me over. Let's have a seat. So I've been, did you get the question over of the pre-listing pack we sent over to you?
I did think it was
Great. Do you have a chance to go through it?
I did.
Okay, fantastic. We're here to talk about you, not me. Okay? I've been doing this a little over 20 years now in the secretary area, and we set a lot of plans. But what changes in every transaction is the point. Okay, so it's really about you, not about me. With that being said, one of three things happen when I sit down with somebody is they see the benefits of hiring me and they do well and they would be great. They may not see the benefits of hiring me and that wouldn't be so great. And the third thing, I may uncover a need that you have that I can either meet or exceed. And then maybe they will choose to work for it. Is that okay? So with that being said, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the absolute best, what one thing would you like to see happen in the transaction?
Obviously sell it for the most amount of money in the least amount of time.
That's good. So what is the most amount of money?
Well, the neighbor behind just sold for $775.
And is that, have you been in that home? Is it, 2 years? Okay, great. And what would happen if you didn't get 775?
Yes, I have to be here to get my wife. I just
What's happening in the house?
I've got a new job.
Oh, terrific. Great. So you do have to sell this house. And has anybody talked to you about sales times, time on market, and that kind of stuff?
No, not yet.
Okay. And so besides the most amount of money, what else would make it a $10 transaction?
Well, I just needed to be like stress-free, discuss with kids and pets.
Okay, so you want, how do you like to communicate? Scale of 1 to 10. You want
No, I went reality-based.
Okay, so like blunt but not really.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. And how do you prefer text, email?
Text is fine.
Text.
Actually very efficient.
Okay, so I'm happy to text you because we're negotiating a contract that will be outside of the contract. So I've got the most money you want to net out of your property, and you would like to be like that 775 mark. You have to be in Atlanta in December, is that correct? And you would like to be stress-free for your job and your tax. So besides those two, is there anything else that we should add to make this 10 plus transaction?
Those are really the most important things. And clear communication throughout the process.
What is good communication?
Well, just at least weekly updates, just so I know what's going on, how much we've got to do.
Okay. So we have a system where you're going to be notified of showings, and we're going to decide how much time we need for that. With that system, you get feedback at the same time. Okay. So if it's favorable feedback, we're going to check out that and we'll reach out to pages or whatever. Okay. If we don't get any feedback, we generally follow the phone call with the agent, and then we're going to call you on Monday and Friday. Is that okay? All right. So besides most money, stress-free, and good communication, is there anything else that you're
No, those are good.
And if we were able to get all three of these completed for you, would you feel good?
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. Well, let's jump into the presentation. So, pause. Next one. Okay, so the needs analysis we just went through, what's important to you and all that kind of good stuff. And let's do. No.
Am I going forward or backwards?
You're going back.
Okay. If this is not going backwards, I'm trying to figure out what's
You want
going on.
to wiggle Excuse me, not the cocaine. Save your comments for the end. Movies.
All right, and this is where we start, Paul?
Yeah, so next. All right, so this is the process, right? We have the initial walkthrough and needs analysis, which we've just done, the established competitive price, sign the listing agreement, prepare the property sale, staging, and photographs. We do professional photographs on all our properties. I'm a good photographer, but I'm not a real estate photographer, and we don't get a second chance to make that first impression. About 92% of the people that contact us about our listings start on the internet. Okay, so we want to put that foot forward. Does that make sense? Okay, and launch the coming soon campaign, officially list the property, launch the just listed campaign, start showing the home, receive and present offers, negotiate contract, go under contract, open escrow, facilitate inspection process, negotiate any issues, oversee the appraisal, coordinate for any further inspections, and do the final walkthrough and closing, which happens to go around. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Do you understand?
We do. We can absolutely, we have a state that we work with, I take the consultation with. So what do you know about Carolyn?
No.
Okay, so Carolyn was started in 1983 in Austin, Texas. They're from this company. Carolyn has a lot of work for a lot of different things. But one of the things I really liked is in 2017, Gary Keller came out to the industry and said that we had a lot of bolt-on technology. We had this particular application with this and another one kind of overlapped and stuff. There was a lot of wasted money in that. So Gary Keller came out with one platform that would allow us to give our clients a much more smooth and coherent transaction. And he said in 2017 that Taylor was founded a tech company, not a real estate company, and was more very lots of models. But one of the things they developed was the real estate act, which allows you to do for properties in any area in the country, active pending solds, rentals, apply for mortgage, active transaction, all that kind of stuff.
So I can use that app to look for it on my phone.
Yes, and if you would like, I have a network of great agents that I can put you in touch with that will be able to help you with that. Is that something that you
Yes,
can
I
help
love
with?
that color.
So then, most of our marketing today is digital. So finding the buyers, typically the buyers, I guess right now we're seeing about 92% of our buyers are showing that. Still about 25% of those will contact the agent prior to actually looking at a home, and then the more traditional yard signs, neighborhood flyers, that type of thing. Okay. And so we spend a lot of time in the digital space. We will print brochures to open houses, but we in the house, things change over time. We do the just listed flyers, the just listed postcards, the coming soons. We'll talk about coming soon in a minute. Custom website for your particular property and agent website. Open house invitational emails, social media marketing. So right now we're using LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and depending on where the particular buyer is coming from, there's a longer sales cycle. Facebook seems to be about 12 to 24 months of engagement. The more immediate you are. So the coming soon campaign, we don't get to coming soon like you used to. MLS has changed the rules on us, so I can't say this is going to be, you'll probably think about it. But what we can do is we can market to our office, and our sister offices in the area is about 1,100 agents that we get out to and start to list around. Okay, because your property will probably be time, and we want to make sure that they have first chance to. Okay. The just listing campaign is when there's like an MLS or welcome to the realtors in our area, where there's a source of buyers for us, to the buyers themselves, and to anybody else in our database. Very large database of people that keep in contact with and let them know about the property. Are you okay with open house?
Kind of mixed on it. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think that open houses are good. It's another tool that I've tool belt. It does only about 3% of the houses held open actually sell. that open house, but I still think it's good for exposure. So what I would like to do is that, again, for launch weekend, have an open house, because your house will never be shining. Okay, and then we can talk about strategies going forward. What we typically do with open houses is we'll show up about 30 minutes early and we'll go off by a house on the side and 10 across, okay, so that the neighbors know we're having it. And there are three kinds of people that show up at the open house. People want to buy, people want to sell, people want to decorate. So we always want to know people So, obviously we have eye-catching yard signs coming up, the high-quality photos, we're getting it out to everybody. Let's talk about pricing for a second. Have you ever been fishing? Okay. So, in this scenario, your price is your rate. That's how you're going to a large part of your market is very cheap. So what price are you going to get? That's probably the most important decision besides hiring me today that you're going to make. If you never get your bait out of the boat, you think you're going to have to buy it? Probably not, right? And if you are getting nibbles, like you get a showing here or you get a showing there, do you think you're probably going to get the highest offer?
Probably not.
So we need to be where all the buyers are. Okay? You can position your house in such a way that you're going to end up with multiple, even in today's market. Okay? And I'm going to show you what we can prove, and then we're going to choose where we choose other ends of the market. Does that make sense? See, we're looking, in today's market, we're looking for 3 to 5 showings a week. Okay? Buyers are coming back for second showings, positive feedback from agents and buyers, and the talk of offers. Okay? If we're not hitting all 4 of those metrics in the first 7 to 14 days, then we're going to have a price improvement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so when you say that, what's the kind
So that means that we may not be positioned properly in the market.
of, what kind of improvement would you do?
Well, typically, if we're having none of these, it's going to be a 10% for them.
Oh.
Okay? If we're getting some of these, it may be a 5%, it could be a little bit less. Okay? So it's going to depend on how the market is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, there's a little bit about how great I am and all that kind of good stuff. You already read through that, so we don't have to spend any time on that. But in the market, industry 21 years, it's 22 years this year. And our list price to sales price ratio is still about a little over 100%. It's not quite 101%. A little bit about Keller Williams. They are the largest residential real estate company in the world. We've got 186,000 Keller Williams agents in North America and in 50 countries. So the great thing is we have a massive reach. Okay, but it still feels like a small company, which is I don't know, that's the one way. The thing I really appreciate then is they are cutting edge of all stuff, and they're the #1 training company across all platforms. So, this is one of the reasons that I actually went to work at Carolyn and I stay. Right? They made it very easy for me to stay. Their philosophy is a win-win. Integrity, do the right things. Customers always come first. Commitment in more things. Communication, success, understand. Creativity, ideas before results. Teamwork together, everybody achieves more. Trust starts with honesty and success with others. I just feel like if you run any question through that, they'll do really good. These are some of the testimonials. I'm not going to go into those. You can read this if you want. Just let you know they're all good. So we make a promise to all our clients, right? We've been doing this long enough where we can foresee issues before they will become issues. So those will probably never be. We're just going to fix them and keep it nice and smooth and stress-free. Occasionally, because it is real estate and it is people, things come up and we've never seen. In those situations, we're going to help you walk through that to a successful end and get you to that goal. Okay? And for that, we ask 2 things from our clients. One, that you would, if you have a 5-star experience, that you give us a 5-star review. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And the other thing is that you would replace yourself. You'll refer somebody to us that is either thinking about buying, selling, or just has real estate questions. Is that all right? Thank you so much. So bottom line is we want to make this the best experience you can have selling your home. Make sense? Good. Any questions about any of that? Good. So I want to jump into pricing here. And you guys don't have that. So, do we want to go through that? Or?
Yeah, there's a whole thing.
So you guys, I can't show you this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So, your property is located in Mountain, in this scenario, okay? And I when I look at pricing, I look at it as this, the same way the appraiser. Okay? I want to go about a half mile, and none of this is set in stone, but this is the general rule that I follow. Is you're going to go about a half mile, you're going to look at similar homes, non-pool homes against non-pool homes, or pool homes against pool homes. I want to go several hundred square feet bigger or smaller depending on the size of the property. And I want the comparable properties to be as similar to the stuff that your property is possible. Yeah? That way we can make the fewest adjustments. So in this scenario, we have, we're going to go back 180 days. We're looking at active pendings and stalls. Your property is 2366 square feet in this scenario. And so we're looking between 2,000 and 2,800 square feet. It's not a full home, it's located in township, and it's a one-story. I'm going to keep this a little broad, and then I'm going to kind of narrow it down so we can make sure we're not missing anything. And the reason we want to look at this the same way the appraisers do is because we have to sell it on to them, right? We have to sell it to the buyers. That's not typically how. To the real estate community. Okay, they look at properties all the time, so we're going to look at value. And third and most importantly is to the appraiser. Because the appraiser doesn't care what market price is. He just gets paid a flat fee to go out and verify what we're saying the price is. Okay? And the bank is going to rely very heavily on whether or not we're going to make money based on that. So we want to make sure that we have a good price. Okay? So right now you have 4 actives, you have 1 pending, and you have 5 sold. So if you have 5 sold, you're selling a little bit over 1 a month. Okay? And you have 4 available. So basically you have about 4 months of inventory. 4 months of inventory is still considered a seller's market. Anything up to like 5 months is considered a seller's market. 5 to 7 is a balanced market, and 7 plus is a buyer. That makes sense? So even though we're in a buyer's market, we still think we want to be very mindful about where we put the price. The pending property, so the active tier of competition, the pending is what, how fast is the market ultimately. This one came on at 509,000, it's 2,652 square feet. It was on the market 6 days. Do you think if the property priced at 509 was on the market 6 days, it's pretty close to the asking price?
Would success.
Well, yeah, because time on market is basically asking for price. If you put your buyer's hat on right now and you were out looking at property, and the second question I was going to ask about how much is it, is how long has it been on the market? If it's been on the market 6 days, do you think you have to make it strong enough? If it's been on 6 months, do you think you have to make it strong enough? You may have adjusted the price, right? Because it's not being sold, so you've adjusted it, but it's still been on a long time. And that is going to indicate whether a buyer is going to make a strong offer or a soft offer. They're going to test. Okay, so what we want to do is make sure that we are getting the activity we're looking for, so we get the strongest offer in the market. Makes sense? So there's the pending. Let's look at the sold. This is where we're getting our price. So this is a 1-story similar to yours. I would usually like to use that one. Let's look at the exterior. How do you think this one measures up to you?
We updated our kitchen.
So did you upgrade it for resale or did you upgrade it for sale? Okay. And how do you think it falls in?
Do you know what considers
And how old did you say you were?
3 years?
3 years. And your AC?
2.
What about your water?
It's about 15.
Okay. So the hurdles we have to get over when you put your house on the market is the appraisal and the inspection. So typically I want to get those done as soon as possible. I want to do the offer. That way we can know what we're going to move forward. I don't want you to stop happening until we have those contingencies. So we want to get the appraisal done quickly and then we'll get the inspection done quickly. The inspectors are going to say at the end of 10 years or more of the water heater, it's at the end of its useful life, even though it's a functional product. Okay, so we have to anticipate that that may be an inspection issue.
Should I decide that now?
I would not say that you shouldn't do that. I think that that's a possibly a good idea. We'll take an objection away. However, you may consider giving a credit for it or something like that. So all of those are 2 stories. This one's a 1, so I would think this would be a good compromise on 4 home. It's right back up to the road, so you're up against conservation. I think that if I was looking at 2 very similar homes, which property do you think better for conservation? Yeah. This one has an updated kitchen. So it's yours. It's got these floors. How do you think that one looks?
I think my bathrooms look better than
Okay. Yeah, your bathrooms are updated. And this is also a 1 story, so I would like that one. And we're going to need 3 to come up with that. We do after this one. How would you rate this one against it?
I think my kitchen's much better.
Of course you do. And what about bathrooms? So this one's on at 549, it's on 27 days before the contract, it's 26. So I'm going to go and I'm going to do my adjustments, and I'm going to look at this, and I'm going to put CFA, make the adjustments. So based on what we're looking at, the adjustments we've made, we're looking at about $189. Okay, you've got a range of 179 to 206. So you have a range of 423 to 494.
So it's not 775?
No, I'm sorry, it's not 775. So based on there, where would you like to end the month?
Well, I'm kind of thinking I want to try to get as much as I can and just start at the high point and see if I get off.
Well, we can absolutely look at that. At 494, do you think you're going to attract the most buyers or maybe some
This one's a serious fires.
serious buyers?
You're not going to give it away.
I absolutely understand. I would not expect you to use it away. Going back to our conversation, the active or the price that you're going to pick to list your property is not necessarily the sale price. It's your market price. So do you want to do it in a short period of time and get multiple offers, or would you like to sit around and maybe wait that?
But I don't have a lot of time, so I guess I need to price it.
Yes. So where in here would you like to enter the market?
Can we try here in the middle range and see what happens?
Yeah, actually, the middle range is 447, right? The way that the search engines pick up your listings today is they don't do apartment numbers, they do whole numbers, right? So it can be 4, 455, 450 when you do your search. That's why I don't price properties at $399. So if we're going to pick that, I would recommend that you did 450. That way you're going to get all the buyers from 400 to 500. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So you want to get your home on market? Okay, great. Would you like me to do an extra?
Sure, that would be very helpful.
450. Give me 1 second. How much did you say you were?
160.
so based on the 450 price that we're going to enter the market at, your net walk away after paying the real estate closing costs and fees and paying up the mortgage, you get net $256,242. Yes, I'm about right. Did I get you wrong?
That will.
Okay, great. So I'd like to have the conversation about fees that should be so for my fee, I charge 3%. What you choose to offer, I was able to accept you. I recommend that it's part of the marketing. We should rely on making it as buyers, so I think we're in a position to market turn out for your property. I would, what would you feel comfortable paying the buyers?
Well, I heard that I don't even have to pay by it.
No, absolutely you don't.
So, can I do that?
You can absolutely do that, but do you want somebody to run buyers? Okay, so I would probably recommend some compensation.
Upfront?
Well, it's going to be dependent on the offer, right? If it's a good offer, then what would you do? 3%, okay, and I think that will generate a lot of great activity to the property. And so your net is going to stay at 256, 240.
And how long will that?
Well, based on what we're looking at in the market right now, the average sold is 50, about 84. Okay? So, and that's on the average, right? So what I believe is based on where we're going to enter the market, that we're going to know really in the first week or two where we're positioned, and then we need to adjust for a price improvement conversation. But I feel like based on the condition, the location, and the place where we should be in the market, we have a very good investment. Can we get started?
I am. I was going to interview 17 other agents, but I'm not sure.
Press hard, three cups. Alright. So go forth and prosper.
No questions. No, who has questions for Paul?
Carolyn, come back up here.
Oh, back up here.
Do you print out your comps or do you always do it on the computer?
I don't print them out anymore. I used to. I mean, like I used to get so dig so deep. Like, okay, you've got pile, you've got hardwood. Like, what's the difference on that? And I used to drill down to like dollars and cents. And some people appreciated it, like the S's and C's for short. The I's could just wanted to have a good time, and the B's were like, get me the answer. Yeah. So it depends on your audience. A lot of times, I think that some people need different things. One of the phrases I use in there is there any questions I should have asked you that I haven't? I got that from Gary Keller. Sometimes it uncovers things that you would never thought to ask. So I'm looking for the objections. I'm looking for how can I overcome possible objections that stop them from doing business with me. What else? Oh, hey, Julia.
Do you ask that question at the beginning or the end? Like, do you have any questions that you want me to like?
I'll ask it all the way through. Sometimes, are there any questions I should have asked? Then, typically I'll ask that on the pre-qualification listing questionnaire, before I get there. Then, when we're getting ready to sit down and at the end. Because I want test closes in there to see if they're, and I really want them to pick the price based on the information. If I pick the price, I own it. Yeah, Anna.
Do you have a proper?
I loved your video the other day.
Thank you. Let me ask you, if you have a property that is hard to find comps, like a property that is a wood frame house, and the other ones are block, how do you make a comps on that kind of properties?
I've done it. I mean, it depends, right? If it's a bungalow in South Tampa that's wood frame versus a block home there, it's gonna depend on location. Sometimes, like the parameters I use for the CMA are not in stone. Like I've seen appraisers go out 27 miles to get a home, right? Because it was a super unique house. It was steel girders, right on the water, right on the point. And there was just no comps, so they had to go out 27 miles to get it. So if you're not seeing what you want, then maybe go back in time a little bit further, loosen up your parameters, go further and as long as it makes sense, right? If you're like, well, this one in Orlando sold for this, then that's not going to work, right? It's got to make sense to you. Well,
So you send out a pre-listing packet
Yeah.
that you expect them to review beforehand with like, here's things we're gonna need, like copies of HOA, copies of tax records, and then a little bit about me.
Yeah.
And then this is what you go through at the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the pre-listing package is, like, has the seller's disclosures, they're filled out. I'm like, this is mine's the latest, you know. We need to make that a little bit more robust, like extra keys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we're still always improving. I've been doing this a long time, we're still improving my system.
Are you sending them hard copies? You just emailing it to them from the fill out?
We email it,
Yeah.
we don't drop it off at the moment. I mean, it's like, I know people that do a whole thing around it, and it's great. You know, it really is, right? And I did that for a little while, but, I mean, time being what it is, I got 2 little kids. I think you should have Joe do that.
That was a very ardent yes.
Yeah, so.
Hard yes.
Yeah.
As far as the compensation, when you get to that, a lot of people are dancing around still with it. You mentioned that you just charge 3%, right?
For me.
Right, do you do that for the fact of just keeping the numbers or keeping them satisfied compared to saying, I charge 6%, but I'm gonna give somebody else 3?
Well, I'm not charging 6%, I'm charging 3, right?
Okay.
So it's up to you what you want to pay the competition, or not competition, the people to collaborate with. And, you know, like Carolyn had stated that, you know, I've heard I don't have to pay anything. Well, you don't. But I mean, do you want to sell your house? It's part of your marketing, right? So having at least something, and most of the buyer's agents I'm talking to these days are, you know, keenly aware of their, and buyer's agents in general are making more now than they were before the lawsuit because their buyer is picking up the difference, right? So knowing what the competition might be offering is somewhat helpful in that area. I never, when I was working with a lot of buyers, I never really, I didn't enforce the buyer brokerage agreement as far as, you know, making 3%, that was my fee. But I would not show a house because it was 2.5, you know. If you get much below that, I find that, you know, it might be a little bit of more of a conversation. I had a buyer's agent send me a commission agreement recently. It was 3% plus $1,054. What the hell is that? I've never seen that. So we had a chat about that. They kind of enlightened me. And I was like, yeah, we're not paying that. So
Well, what does that be, the brokerage fee?
it was our brokerage fee.
1,054.
Yeah, 54. Well, that was fascinating.
So are you using the broker to broker or the seller to broker?
We have gone broker to broker, but we are starting to see other companies not accepting it.
Smith and Associates is not.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
EXP
you,
is
so listen.
not.
Yeah, I would go by a broker to broker.
Yeah,
Right, and so I'm gonna tell them, okay, so that fee, we're gonna take that and we're gonna pay that.
right.
So I will explain that during the presentation. But what I'm starting to see, and I just had this happen where, they were like, yeah, no, we don't want to do that. I'm like, well, I don't do exactly what you want to do. This is the way we do it, you know? And, they were like, yeah, well, no. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I'm not gonna go back and redo my listing agreement because you decided you didn't want to get paid the way you did paid.
Right.
Yeah, but so there's something with the lawsuit that there's got these people a little freaked out, and I'm not sure what it is. So, yeah, so it's, Michelle, I talked to Michelle about it, and she, acting broker, and she said, yeah, it's just too abandoned to, we don't have to change
I was gonna say, when setting the appointment, what are your pre-qual questions?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. So we have a pre-listing questionnaire. I'm not sure this is the right copy, but you know, obviously name, address, phone number, all that kind of good stuff. Question 1 is are you already working with an agent? Why are you moving? Where are you moving to? How soon do you need to be there? If we sold your home in 30 days, would that pose a problem for you? What would happen if your home didn't sell? Will you receive any corporate relocation assistance? Are you thinking about selling it yourself? On a scale of 1 to 10, how urgent is this for you? 10 being the most urgent. What their disc profile is. Then, you know, about the house, square footage, kind of stuff. How is the AC? How is the roof? Does it have a pool? On a scale of 1 to 10, how do they feel their home? What grade would they give their home? And then what would make it a 10? Because then you're going to get all the deferred maintenance. how much they owe on the market, on the mortgage, how much do you think your home is worth, how much would you want to list it for, and then what price wouldn't you go below? Are you up to date on payments? Are you the sole owner? Is there anybody else on title with you? Do you own any other real estate? What are the 3 things you expect from the realtor you hire to get your home sold? Right, so this is how I'm gonna how I would spend time on my list. Like if they say I want to see this, this, and this, then I'm gonna give a listing presentation towards this, this, and this. Okay, and then, the last qualifying question I ask is, when we meet, if you feel comfortable and confident that we can get your home sold, are you prepared to list your home with us?
Do you wet sign that?
I fill it out on the phone.
No, but when you show up at the listing appointment, you bring a hard copy of this agreement to get wet signed right there, and then send the rest.
I send a listing, I take a listing appointment and I get you. Everything else is.
Walk out of that.
Yeah.
Would you say, but you do take you do wet sign on the,
A
on the
listing
actual
agreement and
listing,
the next sheet.
and then you send everything else over?
Yeah, so I want the listing agreement signed and I want them to know what the walkaway is, so there's no.
That's a really smart thing to do because you may notice once you have a listing appointment, people in the neighborhood, start looking out the windows and they see your seller putting new mulch out. And if there's any kind of lag time between when he walked out of the appointment and when the new mulch starts going in, you stand the possibility of the neighbors next door, uncle from Poughkeepsie suddenly wants to buy that house, and it just becomes a situation that you don't want to have. So it's a really smart move to have your documents signed for you.
Yep.
Well, when it comes, and Carolyn, when it comes to properties that need work, at what point do you have that conversation?
About what work?
Yeah,
Right away.
like right away.
I do a pre-listing inspection on almost every single one of my listings, and I believe in that so much that I credit them $500 for doing that on the closing statement. I do not pay for that out of pocket. But I find that we're going to identify the 4-point issues, of course, right away, but it also kind of helps them self-discover how much deferred maintenance they actually have, and sometimes it helps in the reality conversation around the pricing that your neighbor did not have a 15-minute water heater and a 15-minute food.
So you will sign the listing agreement
Mhm.
first, and then you will go through the items that need repair, or you will go through the items first that needs repair, and then have to sign the listing agreement?
Well, the condition of the house is going to determine the price, right? So, like, I always have a conversation about, okay, well, maybe you need to paint this room. It's going to cost you, $200 to paint. What is the buyer going to price it at when they come in? Oh, it's going to be $1,000. So you want to pay $200 or $1,000. So the people are looking for reasons to discount the house. So we have that conversation. And some of the stuff they're willing to do, some they're not, and either one is fine. I love the previous inspection. But I'll sign the listing agreement there. And, if it takes them a week or 2 weeks or a month to get it on, then I'll adjust the time frame on the listing.
I think the pre-listing inspection really eliminates a lot of the post-contract negotiations. I mean, if you've done that, then you go into your inspection period with a confidence, and you've got the certified, inspections of that are making kind of craziness that might be coming from the buyer's inspector. Or you've set the realistic expectation of the mind of your seller that these things might come up unless you're doing less than prior listing. And so if they don't address them prior to listing, and then they do inevitably come up, then they're going to replace that water heater and they're going to zip it.
Correct. Thank you.
So you have the sellers actually pay for that pre-listing inspection, and then you reimburse them at the closing?
Correct. And always with the expectation that anything that's found on that is a disclosable item, of course. But the biggest piece of it is it's not the secondary negotiation, in the midst of the contract. So you're pricing accordingly based on the condition, you're disclosing everything you know, and you're not getting into post-contract negotiation.
So, do you make that inspection available to potential buyers when they're interested in helping?
Not typically. I mean, we're going to disclose everything. And I'll always get a 4.2. So if I've got a passing 4.0 on, say, an older home, then I'll attach that in the MLS. But I don't share the whole report. But everything is disclosed. Don't
always
hear me say.
disclosed.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I had a situation that we did the inspection and we did pass the 4 point, and then when they hire another inspector,
my sellers and say, listen, I gave this house to 5 different inspectors or 5 different appraisers, we likely get 5 different looking inspection reports and 5 different numbers, right? And so some inspectors do key on certain things more than others. So some inspectors will let things fly on the 420, others are like, no, that's unreasonable firm on that. So, I mean, that is always a possibility, but it's more of an exception than a rule.
Would you ever cancel an appointment if, let's say when you're setting the listing appointment, you're like, I need to get this price, and if I don't get this price, I'm not gonna list. Would you ever, and you're looking at the comps, would you ever call them back, be like, we're way too far apart, or would you address that in person?
Well, it depends on how far apart you are. And, you know, especially when I was new, I went on every appointment. It would have to be like something just crazy for me not to go. Because, like, my conversation is, you know, if you're smart, you know, I'm not gonna price your house. If you're even smarter, you're not gonna price the house. If you wanna sell it, the market's gonna price it, right? So we need to, you know, see what the real estate market says your home's worth. Because you do wanna sell, right?
What would make you cancel the appointment? Like motivation, would motivation ever?
The they die. And then I wanna know who the heirs are. I think if they're a jerk, that I might cancel. Like, if I don't like them on the phone, I'm probably not gonna like them. And I will tell you, some people have been super jerky on the phone when I meet them in person. Like, they're just, that's their defense to, there's really not too
Like,
many
I'm not
reasons.
gonna be bamboozled.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
You call
yeah.
Mercer.
They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And if you're running a business the way I know you run your business, you know, once they meet you, they're gonna know, you know, what kind of person you really are. And they will be more than happy to work in that respect. You know, and sometimes, you know, when additional other realtors come up and stuff like that, I'll be like, so, do you like me? And they're going to know. And I say, do you think I can get your home sold? And I'll be nodding, and they'll say, yeah. I said, so besides meeting with these other people, is there any other reason you wouldn't hire me? And they'll be like, no. Okay, great. So what I find in a lot of these situations is when, you know, people like you make appointments, you want to keep them, right? Because that's just kind of the person you are. How about I give that agent a call and tell them what we're offering as a compensation for them to bring over their buyers, and I'll tell them you really want to meet with them, but you met with me and you hired me. Would that be okay? And I made that call a few times. I actually called one agent one time and she's like, are you kidding? And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I've got these calls, you know, and it sucks. And she's like, well, I didn't even care anyway. I didn't even want to go. I'm like, well, good, you don't have to. It was quite funny. You have a question?
Yeah, on your estimated seller's net sheet, you're doing that on paper, right?
Yeah.
You're doing it on a computer, but then you're transcribing it to paper.
No, I'm just going to write it out. I'm like, I'll do it on a pad, and then I'll transcribe it to the net sheet.
And you're building in 6% prior to, and then, well, I noticed, but you said it's not going to change once she confirmed the 3% and the 3%. You had already kind of figured in 6%?
Yeah. I'll do it on 6% or 7% or 8% or whatever you guys want to charge me. There is no customary or anything like that fee. It's what you guys charge, right? And then, you know, if it's a conversation and, you know, I agree that we're going to, you know, change something somewhere, I'm not going to start out at deficit. Like, if you're competing on price, you're just one admitted. You know, if you're competing on what you charge, you just become a commodity, right? And you know, especially what I find here is that we provide a lot of value and we bring a lot of expertise, and if you don't have it yet for somebody who does, we build it out. And that it's not what they pay, it's what they keep, right? So that's what you want to key on. It's like, you know, when I have people asking me commission questions, I'm like, well, it depends what you want. It's not one size fits all, right? And when I hear people asking me what, you know, what they're going to pay for a commission, it's really more, the question is, what are you going to keep? What are you going to take to the bank? Is that what I'm doing? So let's maximize that. Okay, and that usually is the question. And I don't get into that in the phone.
If you're not as adept with the calculator as Paul is, I was actually in awe. I've never done that myself. Any of your favorite title companies will have a platform where you can do different scenarios in advance of the meeting, and then you have that with you. You know, most of us are going to come in with kind of the low, middle, high range. You can just have those prepared in advance, and then when they ask you about it, another question, you can.
I think everyone should learn how to do a net sheet.
No, they absolutely should. I mean, I've never sat
pen
there.
and paper on a net sheet.
I've never sat in front of a seller with a calculator like, in their house.
every time I do that, like literally every time, every appointment, I have a net sheet, a KW net sheet, and I literally got my calculator, and I'm literally putting it on it, and like, the sellers are like, the two other agents that came and interviewed, didn't even know how to do a net sheet. And so right there, just that piece alone is the foot in the door.
Well,
And
they
then
probably
also,
didn't have one, I don't know that they care how they did it, but they more than likely didn't have one in their pocket.
Well, some are really impressed that you can actually do it. And
Well, and that's,
it's
you're
not
trying to
really
separate
out.
yourself from the crowd.
100%, exactly. And then going back to Adam's price thing, we just listed one that was on the market for 900,000 and then left the market. It was listed with another agent, left the market at 879. We listed it at 750. So I think you go to every appointment because it's a connection, it's a person, it's referral opportunities and things like that. So, like if they're a jerk, like yeah, I probably wouldn't go. So I think I'm going on every appointment I can possibly go on.
So there's
Paula, you said that you only take the listing agreement and the net sheets with you, like all the other stuff you just send it by DocuSign the next day or something?
Yeah, well, as soon as possible. So, and I will prep them, like, whenever you leave an appointment, you want to set them up for the next appointment, so you want to tell them what's going to happen next. And yeah, I mean, I used to do all the paperwork there, and that adds, 30, 45 minutes, sometimes an hour to the list. I mean, my listing appointments on the just be like 3 hours. Right? And, but I mean, I did a friend and stuff like that. And I really do want to keep it, 45 minutes an hour if I can.
I never thought about that, I like it. It does make it
Maybe
much
the seller's
shorter.
disclosures ahead too is, like he said, is a really good indicator. If you get there and that's filled out and they have the 2 keys and the yield survey or whatever it is on the table, then that's kind of your signature document.
I think also with like sending stuff ahead of time, especially if you can feel that the person's like a high C personality, getting the paperwork to them ahead of time. Because a high C personality is 100% good, analytical. They're going to read everything. They're going to. It's going to be a 3-hour appointment, right? If you do not send the stuff ahead of time. So learning the disc and understanding personality styles and who your audience is will help you when you're going for that appointment. So definitely sending the stuff ahead of time.
I agree.
What I don't understand is that you didn't talk about the commission at all. Your side or the buyer side, and you used the connection.
Yeah. She didn't ask.
Well, I kind of did when he put I saw it write it on his sheet. I was like, whoa, what's that? He said, we'll talk about that later. But I think the point in all of that is that he had already sold his value at that point. He sold KW's value at that point. And we already have strategy of how we're going to sell it when we get to Atlanta. And so that's really what you're trying to do in every listing.
So we don't really have to really say that this.
Oh, they're going to ask.
Well, I mean, I did.
Well, he did,
Yeah.
So the thing with that is, like, the commissions were a big hurdle for me to overcome at some point. Because everybody, especially when I got started, I mean, everybody was like, wanted the cheapest guy, and there was people riding around like, I'll sell you a house on the side of that Hummer for $2,000, and when Hummer.
Because I need to make my Hummer bigger.
Exactly. So I came up with like 3 or 4, through script and role play, commission objections. And once I felt really comfortable with that, I really never got commission objections again. Right? I still get them from time to time. When we talk about it, it goes back to, is it what you're going to pay or what you want to keep? Right? Because I've done business with some of these people that charge 1% or whatever, and there's not a lot of them that are good at that, because it costs a certain amount of money to stay in business. So when the market gets tight, a lot of them will get out of the business. Like the big thing was home discovery, which is now what, Ideal Agent, something like that. When I got started, and they were charging 2%. Well, it was 2% if they had their home, but if they had to show it, it went to 3%. And then if their buyer came along, it was going to be like 5%. And there was another agent involved, it was going to be 7%. So, like, understanding what your competition is doing is also key. I had a friend of mine who used to work in this office. I helped them purchase their home. And it was a discount realtor that the seller had listed with, and we couldn't get a call back from the discount realtor. Like, they would not call it back. So she's like, well, can you go knock on the door? I said, well, I can't. They have a contract with these people. I said, you can. So she went and knocked on the door. She said, I've got an offer on your house, and we get no feedback. We ended up making that deal work, and not because of the listing. So, yeah, what you pay for.
By the time you've illustrated all the things you're gonna do and your value, then if the question is kind of, well, which of these things would you like not to do? Because some of these things have fixed expenses attached to them.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes they just think that you are dropping into your pocket so you can buy a Hummer.
Yeah.
But
So-
if you can illustrate that all of these things are expenses that you're running out of pocket to market their home, and what is a discount agent going to do if they're only charging 1%? How are they marketing their home?
Well, and I always break it down like on my 3%, you know, like 1% goes to broker, 1% goes to non-real property, 1% goes to, you know, I have to pay taxes on that. So, what part do you want to cut? The broker's not going to cut theirs. What do you want me not to market your property? And they're like, well, if I sell it quick. Okay, well, if you sell it quick, I did a really good job, I should get bonus, right? So, let's talk about that. No, we'll do that.
I think in this market, it's easier to get a higher.
Agreed.
Maybe like that's the,
100%.
when you're in a market where it's moving 100 miles an hour, like COVID market,
Yeah.
you get a lot more rejection.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that when you're willing to walk away from it, it's kind of it's like, you know, it's not that I won't negotiate on that stuff, but at a certain point, I'm like, I can go do 2 other properties for what you want, and I can make more money.
And owning that Paul didn't contract their home in 5 days because it was super easy. Paul contracted the home in 5 days because he's been doing this for 20 years. So it's not the time he spent to contract that particular house, it's the time he spent mastering his craft. And if you're newer in this industry, then fall back on this office. Don't worry about, well, I don't have any sales. Fall back on the sales of this office and the depth of knowledge of this office and the training that you get here, and help illustrate to them what they're doing.
All right, so I'm gonna pause questions here. We'll have lunch afterwards, just so that we can respect your time, make sure we get you out of here on time. Round of applause for Paul and Carolyn.